because
Well, something has
of,
changed since
yes,
2022. What is that?
right, the presidential election
Ah.
and the
Hmm.
move towards business-friendly administration, and they have money to
We have a
invest.
Saudi-friendly administration. What else has changed dramatically for the Saudis? And this is all breadcrumbing stuff related to Live Golf's posture towards a deal. Okay. Well, when you say what's Live Golf's posture towards a deal, you can't think of that without thinking about the prince's posture towards a deal, and you can't think about the prince's position on things without thinking about the broad landscape that he thinks about. Vision 2030, which is a transformation of the Saudi economy and culture, really, both, and everything that goes into that. Okay. So what are they really interested in? We've always said deal making with Live Golf. True.
True.
And they're interested in oil and where that's being sold worldwide and who is selling it and the price and all the things that go along with that, right? And Yasser is the chairman of Saudi Aramco. They're interested in oil. They're interested in the presidential election here. We've already touched on those two things. What else are they principally interested in the top of their list? Because you were headed there, Dark Star. I'm just giving you a little more detail. But when you say stability,
yeah,
they're very, very, very interested in the Syrian civil war. When did Assad get overthrown? It's recent, since the election. That is a big deal to Saudi. Okay. Why? Because it hurts Iran big time. And this is not a show about politics. December 8th. Okay. So it was in December. The Assad regime collapsed. Oh, I like how that's written. So in December, a month later after Trump's elected, this is sort of when you talk about the triumvirate. And here we have Trump elected president. Assad collapses in Syria. Syria is, for those of you that don't study that stuff, and I know you don't need to. You got us. And we'll relate this to golf, in fact. The Syria is the pathway. It's the trail. It's the road, literally. It's the paved road between Iran, between Persia, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Okay. And they're through Lebanon over to their friends in Gaza. They're shipping money and weapons from Iran, which sells oil, to, not a lot of oil, but they're still selling it to China to get the money and they make weapons in Iran. So they're shipping cash and weapons, all kinds of weapons, over to their buddies in Lebanon and Gaza. To what? Destabilize Israel and the Middle East, to keep it all in turmoil. Okay. What do the Saudis want? Darkstar, I go back to you for your word from a few minutes ago.
Stabilization.
Stabilization or stability. And Iran wants the opposite. They want instability because they have a religious problem with each other. And Saudi's the capital of Islam, and Iran doesn't like that. Iran is Shia, and Saudi is Sunni.
How many golf fans know that, by the way?
But that's all matters, because you know who is important to? The prince. It's important to the prince. And if the prince is thinking over cappuccino with Yasser, hey, this Syrian thing has gone well for us. Now, the Syrian new government we won't go into that, but there's a lot moving parts there, right? Can they be trusted? Can they not be trusted? Basically, let's put it there. And there's the thing with Turkey and blah, 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 because Syria sits right in the middle of all that. An ancient country, beautiful place, really, historically, and important to that part of the world, extremely important. So Netanyahu's talking about all this stuff at the same time. Does Netanyahu talk to the prince? You better believe it. Absolutely. Do they publicize that? No. It's a secret, but they talk. How often? Enough. When it's needed, they talk. Because Israel and Saudi are about to normalize relationships, and then Gaza happened specifically to stop that from happening. And it worked. And so this is all in the mind of the prince. And lo and behold, when all of that is going on, Live Golf starts in 2022. We mentioned this in the last show. It's too coincidental now, all these dates overlapping. So Live Golf's been going on since 22. In the middle of the Biden administration, they're turning off friendship for Saudi. Saudi can't have that. They can't lose their friendship with the United States. It's too important. Doesn't mean that the United States always wants to be friends, though, and they sort of tolerated it. And when Biden's team needed some oil, they flew Blinken over there. In any event, the relationship was very cold, very sour. If part of LIV Golf's invention and funding, we mentioned this in the last show, was principally a political maneuver, and I would argue 100% that it is, even if you say at best it's tourism, that's still political for the Saudis. So they're throwing money at something that they think is a worthwhile endeavor to create a Western-style sport in their country for the purpose of A, B, C, and D. Fill in the blanks. Deal making is what we've said, a business thing. I speculated a show or two ago that, well, you know what? Come to think of it, the frigid relationship between Washington, D.C. and Riyadh during the Biden administration may have been another reason to amp that project up. We need another reason to be talking with certain members of the U.S. aristocracy, blah, blah. Maybe golf's a way to do that, among other ways to do it. Now the administration changes. Washington now loves Saudi Arabia. They have their Ukraine peace talks in Riyadh last week or week before. It couldn't be more of a 180. Well,
yeah. I mean, let's
you would argue and then take over that 180. Maybe that changed LIV Golf's direction.
Yeah, I mean, think about it in the perspective of, they own massive, soccer or international football teams, correct?
They own Newcastle United in the Premier League, which is the league for soccer.
The league.
And they've started their own. They have the Saudi Soccer League.
Right. So the LIV Golf is, once again, it's not even one of their larger
it's smaller than cricket. They've done cricket too. They've done Formula One, cricket, soccer, right?
The money they must pump into Formula One, and that's kind of, I always find that hysterical. That all these other sports that they've pumped so much money into, and for whatever reason, the only sport that the media, the Western media, ever talked about sports washing with them was golf.
And what does that tell you? Take a pause. What does that tell you about the, let's say, genius of the prince?
Yeah.
He picked a sport that is tiny, really, worldwide, and in terms of audience, professionally, professional sport. Yeah, it's a professional sport. It's tiny in terms of audience globally. He picks this sport, and the genius of it is, it's, as you just said, which is the one that the Western press talks about, at least in the U.S. And, well, really, although it gets a lot of press in the UK, too. I don't know about Australia. It probably does. You could tell us. I mean, obviously, LIV is talked about over there for golf fans. But it's silly, almost, how much attention. It is silly. Not almost. It's silly, and we can bring it back and connect these two dots that are obviously right in front of us. This little tiny sport, this silly little thing that the Saudis have thrown, $3, $4, $5 billion at so far. Nobody really knows, audience. They throw around money like they have it, an audit was just performed by PricewaterhouseCoopers. No, nobody really knows how much they've spent. Let's just say 3, 4, 5. Fine. That's reasonable. It's in there. Is that a lot of money? Well, here's the other breadcrumb. Did they not just sit down? Did Yasser Al-Rumayyan did he not just sit down and have a meeting in the Oval Office about golf? Are you kidding? Darkstar, tell me quickly. When was the last meeting in the Oval Office about soccer?
Yeah.
Or Formula One? Or cricket?
Yeah.
None. Zero.
Right. Never.
Will there ever be a meeting between Donald Trump and the leaders of cricket? No. Or soccer, or the Premier League, or as a part of soccer, or Formula One, or anything else you want to think about. Never going to happen. Not in sports. So
Never.
The prince is a genius, and he picked the right sport, among others, to tinker with. So the purpose of that, the 4 or 5 billion, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it's cheap. We've just got meetings with the president of the United States. Everybody's talking about us over there. It's fantastic. We did not go to Siberia during the Biden administration when we were in Siberia. Nobody cared about us. Nobody was talking about us. And we start this LIV Golf thing, and everybody's talking about us in the what? In the aristocracy of, wealthy people in the United States play golf and have fancy clubs.
It's the craziest thing when I think about.
We'll leave it right there for this free preview of our Thinking Man Golf podcast. To get the rest of this show and all our podcasts, visit our channel on Substack. That's where you'll find everything we're talking about. Click the link you see below in the video description, or go to thinkingmanshow.substack.com.